Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Triple Threat Comics YouTube channel. I'm your host, Ian Miller. Coming all the way from Melbourne, Australia, please welcome Art of Play game developer and designer, Ash Nicholls. Ash,
Hello,
welcome to the
everyone.
show.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks for having me. Sorry it took so
Good.
long for this to happen.
Yeah, yes. Ash was a little bit delayed getting to the office because a lot happened.
Yes, we've classic Saturday morning in Australia, a wedding and someone trying to set fire to our recycling bin, all within a half block radius. So classic times. But anyway, it's great to be with you. It's great to be talking to you.
Yeah, absolutely, and talking to you as well, and talking about our topic for today. Because this past week you guys actually launched your video game based on a certain purple costume superhero. That's right, folks. It's the Phantom game. I
Yeah,
can't tell you how excited I am to hear what I heard about this project because I'm a huge fan of the Phantom and I was very excited about it. So, why don't you walk us through how this came to be?
sure. Well, we had been, our studio had been developing largely online games, mobile games for about 12 years. And when the pandemic hit, it sort of dried up a lot of that work. And we had been, we had all our console licenses set up, and we were like, we needed kind of a bit of a boot to switch over and pivot the company to doing console stuff. So one night, I think it was 2020, I think, I was browsing the internet and I saw some reviews of the NECA figures for the Phantom and for Flash Gordon. And I thought, wow, they look awesome. And it had been probably, I don't know, half a decade or a decade before I'd actually, or since I'd actually read any of the Phantom comics or been involved with the Phantom. But the Phantom was huge for me during my childhood, I should say. We, as kids, were kind of raised on the Phantom, and it wasn't really until 1989 when Batman hit the big screen that we realized there are other superhero characters. For us, it was Phantom all the way. My dad gave me his comics, and I collected comics with my friends, and so Phantom was always huge. So I immediately thought to myself, well, this would be a great project because the Phantom's near and dear to me, and if we're gonna if we're going to basically cover the costs of our own game, I would like it to be something I'm extremely passionate about, because if I'm going to put in 100 hours a week working on something, it might as well be something I really want to create. So we got in touch with King Features Syndicate via email. And to our surprise, I sent them a really brief sort of summary of who we were and what we wanted to do and our objective and who we were as like fans and all that sort of stuff. And to our surprise, within about 3 hours, we got a response. And so from there, we had a quick call with them and we put together a larger proposal. And then it kind of didn't do anything for a year. Despite our desires, our interests to get things off the ground, the back and forth dialogue took about a year and before we got the first contract. And I threatened them that I would fly to New York and meet them face to face if they didn't have a contract for me. And they didn't believe me. And then I said, 2 weeks before I was about to fly out, I said, "Hey, I'm coming to New York," and the contract that materialized on the day I arrived in New York. Strangely enough, so from there, we had a really good collaboration with King Features. The Phantom at that stage, there wasn't really a lot happening. This is like the end of sort of 2021. And this is before they'd signed the deal with Mad Cave and all that sort of stuff. So there was only really the Australian and Swedish contingent publishing at that stage. Yeah. So our premise from the very beginning was we wanted to create something fun. We wanted to create something light, but we wanted to create something that had the feel like you were stepping into the Phantom's world from a comic book perspective, because there's been lots of video games that sort of take a 3D character and then skin it with a cel-shaded comic-esque look. And I was tired of that. I really was tired of playing the comic book aesthetic and not being visually entertained. So that was our goal, and it was pretty lofty to say, well, we're going to hand draw everything. We didn't think so at the time, and then of course halfway through we realized, oh, what have we done, sort of thing.
Oh my God.
We began sort of the prototyping, the pre-production side of things, and realized we actually like fully loved the aesthetic, and King Features were totally on board with it. So we rolled on from there.
Wow, that's amazing, especially considering you're hand drawing almost everything. You know, the environment, the character movements, the walking. I'm like, I have to ask, how many illustrations is that?
So for the Phantom, I have to break it down per character and then run some NASA type calculations in my head. The amount of frames for the Phantom are roughly about 300. And then you have Diana, who is equal to that, because the playable characters, you have a lot more frames than the enemies. And then we have 5 standard enemies and 5 assassin enemies, and then bosses, and then backgrounds. So it's an exorbitant amount. It's in the thousands of hand-drawn frames.
Wow.
Yeah. It'd be somewhere between 1.5 to sort of 2,500. I mean, I'd have to go back and check, but yeah, there's a lot. It's a lot.
I could say that. Wow, and all
Yeah.
hand drawn. That took a lot of time.
Yeah, we had to create a pipeline to actually get it done, because our studio's always been doing games that have varying visual aesthetics. We did games for Nickelodeon for Rise of the TMNT, right, which is all hand drawn. But then we did games for the 2012 edition of TMNT, which was all CG. So we'd always been sort of juggling between visual styles. And out of all the visual styles, I'm very much, inclined to, I just love 2D, basically. I love the comic book aesthetic, always have. So again, I thought, well, if we're investing our own money to make this game, we want to be doing something that we totally enjoy, and not be doing... not be trying to utilize a medium that we're either not that excited about or not that expert in, or whatever the case may be. So yeah, it was a challenge to set up that pipeline to have the hand-drawn illustrators, and then cleanup artists, and then the colorists, and then myself doing all of the monitoring and editing and direction of that process, and then also the exporting of frames at the end, and the timing sequences, right? Because when you hand draw things, you hold on some of the keyframes, and you let some of the in-betweens go by a little bit quicker. So all of that sort of stuff had to be managed. And also the pre-planning process is insane, because you want to make sure you get everything right before it goes into the engine, because if you have to tweak things inside the engine, you're essentially going way back to the start of the drawing board. So yeah, lots of lessons learned, and for our future games, we've definitely got a more streamlined process, but we had to develop all that from scratch.
Yeah, that seems to be the thing that usually happens with each game production, I would imagine. You learn things from the first one, then you adopt those lessons.
I can tell you every mistake that is possible in game production, we made at least once during the Phantom, and some of them you can see coming a mile away, but you have to make a decision over, creative over budget, or time over, like there's always compromises you need to make. But for us, this was more of a project to show licensors and the community at large that we can put out a game in 2 years, and it can be something that's unique and different from other things. And we're not trying to break the mold in terms of side-scrolling beat 'em up, action adventure games. We kind of borrowed a little bit from all the things we loved as kids. But the aesthetic was really important to us, and I think that shows through.
Oh, absolutely. I looked at the gameplay when you guys first launched it, and I was like, wow, this is really impressive, because at that point, when the trailer was released, the 2D, beat 'em up games were starting to come back in the different consoles. Like with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and the recent Power Rangers one. So I'm like, this definitely fits them all very well, and I think fans are going to be legitimately excited about it, especially Phantom fans.
Yeah, look, it's a double-edged sword because we'd obviously started planning for all of this before all of that kind of genre came back, and because of the whole process from organizing contracts through the game being finished is such a long time, we kind of sort of now fall into the latter end of all these big major releases, like Karate Kid, um, GI Joe, Wrath of Cobra. All these games sort of came out, and we sort of hit the tail end of it. But that's just the world and how timing works. But
Yeah.
when we were getting into it, it was really only Streets of Rage that had come out at that stage, and maybe Asterix versus Obelix, Asterix and Obelix slapped them all, were the two sort of games that had been out already. But we really wanted to make something that was a bit more grounded, that was a little bit more like Final Fight or Batman Returns on the Super Nintendo.
Oh,
Give it that kind of feel. And I know it's not going to be for everyone in the sense that you have the modern beat 'em ups now, which are very flighty, very kind of punching and kicking enemies against the invisible barriers or the screen walls and being able to do combos in the air and all that sort of stuff. We didn't feel like that fitted the Phantom. There is a pretty old school classic feeling with the Phantom where he's more of a Batman type character. He really is Batman in the jungle, right? Or I should say
yeah.
Batman emulates the Phantom because the Phantom's older. But we really wanted to capture that more grounded, and of course the whole game is set in the 1930s, right? So
Yeah.
we're researching fashion, we're researching buildings, we're researching vehicles of that era because we wanted it to have some semblance of what's the word I'm looking for? Connection to that era. Even if it's not exactly the right year that a motorbike came out, it's within that sort of 1930s to 1935 era. So, it's weird because it is just a beat 'em up if you want to really boil it down, but we've put so much effort into like all that behind the scenes stuff, and we really wanted it to feel like it's a every punch of the Phantom feels like something, and it's not a Funko Pop kind of ping pong modern beat 'em up, and that's not going to appeal to everyone. And we've already had some comments come back on the game saying, this feels like a game made 30 years ago, and it's like, okay, well, I can take that because that's kind of our vision. It's difficult to try and one of the difficult things we had to do was to take the Phantom, who had never really been represented in an animation form outside of Defenders of the Earth, which if you sit down and actually watch Defenders of the Earth, the Phantom scenes are very well shot in the sense that he's not really doing much other than running and jumping. So we took a little bit of that, but largely we had to make the Phantom feel like a grounded, full character. How fast would he move? How bulky would he be? Is he going to be as agile as Defenders of the Earth? Is he going to be a bit more like Batman? So we had all those decisions to make internally, and there was no one really there to say, you should go this way, you should go that way. So all of that kind of took time and re-emphasized the type of game we wanted to make, which is a slightly slower, more grounded beat 'em up than the modern stuff that's been coming out.
Yeah. Just to double back for a second there, we said that it takes place in the 1930s. Was it on any specific story, like from the Lee Falk books, or just
we got permission from King Features to go our own way with the story? So we had to present King Features with the story and get it approved ahead of production. And we kept it really simplistic because we just wanted to get the Phantom and Diana traveling the globe. Going to really great, locations, fighting pirates on pretty much every continent. So to do that, we had to set up a pretty stock standard premise, but within that, there is some underlying narrative about the Phantom's mental process as he goes through these stages. So, it's not a Tolstoy novel by any stretch. It's, we wanted something that also people who have not really been a part of the Phantom or know the Phantom that well can actually just pick up the story and run with it. The Phantom's so great in that it can be like a detective style story, or it can be purely action. It can be reflective and more historical. The Phantom going back and spending time with historical figures, whether it be Robin Hood and his merry men, or even the former founders of the US. Like, he's kind of been everywhere and done everything. So the pool of material we could have taken it from was just overwhelming, to be honest. So we kind of just went our own way and we got it approved. And we got Australian fan writer Matt Keane to come in and help us sort of shape it a little bit.
Mm-hmm. This is fantastic.
Matt Kine, not Keane. Sorry, it's early.
I get. Oh, but that's fantastic. Yeah. So it's got about 15 levels, as I understand it.
Yeah, we trimmed it down to 14 in the end. We had 15 in there. We've removed one of them since the early development. But yeah, so it's 5 missions. Most of the missions have 3 levels. Some only have 2. And then we wanted to mix it up between your standard brawler, beat 'em up sort of stuff, and then there's a couple of run and gun. The run and gun levels are more set in vehicles. Mm-hmm. The other thing we wanted to do was create a nice dynamic between the Phantom and Diana. And I think probably if you've watched the 90s movie with our good friend Billy Zane,
yeah,
he and I forget the person who played Diana. There's really good chemistry with that, and we wanted to sort of like we wanted to kind of build that a little bit of that into the game. So the co-op is really fun. You can do a combination attack with the Phantom and Diana together. Excuse me. But then the run and gun stages are the Phantom and Diana together as a team, riding hero, riding on top of a motorcycle. So when you're playing co-op, one person is controlling the motorcycle, one person is controlling the person who's shooting.
Ooh.
So that's sort of like a bit of a variational way. It's more of like a Lucky and Wild arcade type experience, where someone could sit down and drive and the other person would have the Uzi. We wanted to build a little bit of that into the game too. And look, it's sort of not really in the standard beat 'em up formula. So kind of diverged a little bit away from it, but we had a lot of fun doing it. I think that when you're playing it, we've already had a very lovely message come through to us about a couple in the 60s who their date night was to play the new Phantom game together, and I thought that was great. I just hope they reversed the roles so the husband was Diana and
that would be interesting date night. That would be interesting date night.
Something tells me coming out of Australia, it was probably more the other way around, the traditional way. But yeah, that's the kind of vibe we wanted to bring, because Diana's really cool, and we spent a lot of time trying to make her different from the Phantom, the way she moves, the way she fights. Because we didn't want it to feel like, okay, we've taken the Phantom character, now we've just color shifted it, like and threw a wig on him, which is what they did in the 80s in the arcades, right? To save money and time, they just color shifted everything. So yeah, man, look, we're really happy with what we've created. We've got a big second patch coming through in the next couple of weeks, which will address all the stuff we didn't get a chance to do before launch. Which is always the case with every game we've ever worked on. There's always the definitive director's cut floating around. But this will be a big patch. It'll update a whole bunch of things. We're working on some improved enemy AI, some improved combat. Ultimately, I think it's a game made by fans for the fans. So that's our objective.
I like that. Game made by fans for the fans. That's always a positive thing, especially as someone who plays those type of video games, because I grew up obviously playing the Super Nintendo games, so I'm very well versed in that. So when I saw this, I was like, okay, this is definitely for those video game fans, any fans of, this generation, that just loves video games, or Phantom fans, because again, they're still there. They've grown.
Yeah, I think we got little chuckles and little tingles of enjoyment out of just simply having the Phantom being able to draw his guns and put his guns back in again. Like, I think I watched that animation play, 30, 40 times. And you can use your guns in the game and things like that too. So and devils in it, and we've kind of brought most of the classic elements of the Phantom into the game. But for us, I'm in my 40s now, so it was definitely the arcade / Super Nintendo days of beat 'em ups that resonate with me the most. I mean, I loved Streets of Rage 4, and I love all those kind of modern. I love a lot of the modern stuff, but for me, the more grounded, gritty beat 'em ups is what I enjoy the most.
Yeah. And it's funny you had mentioned Batman Returns earlier because I played that a lot. I still play it every now and then. So
yeah, it's great.
I know, isn't it?
It was the first time I remember when I first hired it from our local video rental store. Just seeing the sprite sizes on the Super Nintendo being that big and that rich, it was like Christmas, really. And the ability to throw the enemies into the windows and break the windows, and the dudes riding around on motorbikes, it just had that really nice. We've obviously taken some of those references from that into this game, but I think at the end of the day, we wanted to make what we enjoyed to play, and we totally understand that the beat 'em up genre has expanded, and there is a lot to it now. Certainly a lot more than that even I was aware of when we first started working on the project. But for us, if we went too flighty, too fanciful with the Phantom, it wouldn't have felt like the Phantom. But there is always room for additions and improvements, which we're definitely going to get into. So, yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's absolutely great. Like I said there earlier, you launched on the 12th, which is a couple of days ago, and so far the responses have been very well. Have been well.
Yeah, we're doing pretty well. It's like 3.8, 3.9, or 4 stars, I think, on a PlayStation Store, and about 7 out of 10 on Steam. It's going pretty well. Yeah, like I said, it's a game made for the fans initially. We hope that the general gaming public like to play it as well. Like I said, we're aware it's not like the most modern beat 'em up, and there's certainly we're a small team, so we're and this is our first game, so we're trying to like punch above our weight a fair bit. But we're happy internally with the results. We've got a lot to do. There's the big second patch to go. I think we're about 116 line items on our spreadsheet we want to address.
Oh my.
So yeah, like for us, this game was never about like we want to cash in and get hundreds of thousands of dollars from the Phantom. Like resurrecting a 90-year-old character for a modern game was never about like reining in the cash. It was always about, can we create something that visually stands apart from everything else, and mechanically has enough to it that people want to play through it. So I think on those cases, everyone seems to be pretty positive about it.
Yeah, I would certainly say so. And what's great about this video game is that it also, just brings new fans to the universe of the Phantom, because again, obviously it's the character's been around for, as we said, 90 years, but again, he's been limited for certain things like the animated series or the movie. Yeah. That's about it. The comics are still there, obviously, but that's about it.
Yeah, I think if you just look at a picture of the Phantom, you instantly think that's a cool character. Yeah. And what we tried to do was keep it traditional, but give it a modern look as well. And I reached out I did a whole bunch of research on who the more current illustrators of the Phantom were, and I came across Anthony Spey, and I sent him an email to say, hey, I'm making a Phantom game. And he didn't believe me. He thought I was just trolling him. But we got together on a Zoom call, and I sort of explained where I wanted to go with it. And we started doing conceptual work from really early on, before the contract was even signed, because I wanted to understand in my head how this was all going to work. And his version, and went through a whole variety of different Phantoms, from the more bulkier Glenn Ford era down to the more classic sort of, Cy Barry, really early stages of the Phantom. And, we sort of settled somewhere in the middle. We didn't want him to feel too brutish, and we didn't want him to feel too agile-like. So we settled on a nice, medium level to his build and his complexion and everything like that. But when we took all that to King Features, we sort of didn't get an initial response from them. And so we thought, okay, well, if they really wanted to say something, they would say it. So, no news is good news sort of thing. So we just kept powering through. And then for New York Comic Con in 2023, we had a big meeting up at their headquarters in New York. And they were absolutely blown away with the version of the Phantom we created. And it had inspired them to create a new visual style guide internally to hand out to different vendors. So, we're really proud of that. That's our legacy, I think, with the Phantom, more so than the game itself, is just the style of the Phantom we have presented. It's classic, but it's still modern. And we have thousands of pieces of paper here at the studio that showcase that version of the Phantom. So, my dad gave me his comics. I will be able to give my son the game and my stamp on the 90-year-old. And that's kind of what the Phantom's all about, right? It's a generational thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I can't wait to hear that you're giving the game to your son. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty soppy kind of thing, but my dad wasn't really a creative person, but he'd like to read the Phantom, and I've taken that to the next level. And my son will be given, everything I've worked on, and hopefully there won't be a whole warehouse full of unsold games.
I doubt it, because I just looked at the Art of Play shop. You're all sold out of the digital codes.
Yeah, well, we not technically sold out, but we had to cancel with the Sony and Nintendo stores. We can't be selling digital codes the same time they're selling the digital code. So
okay.
It's against it. So we closed, but we did sell a lot.
Okay.
And we hired a lot of legacy Phantom illustrators to come in and do alternate box covers for us. It was a great opportunity to work with Cy Barry, who's 96 this year.
Wow.
And his son, obviously, who's helping him out. So we kind of did all that on our own back too. Like, it's not cheap to hire 7 Phantom artists to do box covers. So that was a sort of the big crux behind our pre-orders, was we wanted to offer something again to the fans.
Yeah. It definitely worked out. Yeah. I'm very excited for you. This is a very exciting time for Phantom fans. I pre-ordered mine the day it was announced to pre-order, so I'm just waiting for that digital code to come in.
Oh, you haven't got your digital code yet?
Not yet.
On what platform?
It was the PS4.
I'd be checking your spam folder, because I went back because I saw your name and I looked at the orders and went, oh, Ian, I personally sent yours.
Okay, so I have to look at it afterwards, after the show.
Art of Play often, because of the name Play and then Games, it gets spammed so easily. It's in hindsight, calling the studio Art of Play Games probably would have been easier to not get email spammed by everyone. But look, man, if it's not there, it's definitely sent, because when I went to respond to your email today, and I did a search for Ian Miller in my inbox, the actual email came up that I'd sent to you. So you just give it a shot, dude. So, yeah, I thought, you'll have time to play it before the interview.
Oh, this is so rich, folks. This is really so rich. I didn't think this was going to happen.
If it's not, man, the code's right here, so I'll just resend it.
Hold on. I'm actually looking up, folks. I'm really looking up. So just give me a second.
Yeah, it says here, hey, hello. It was sent to you on the 13th at 5:17 my time. I don't know what time that is for you, but it was.
I'm looking.
I'm not going to read out the email address, but
no, please don't.
Yes.
I don't see it for some reason. Not even in the spam.
All right. I will. Do you have a? Oh, we can talk about it after the chat.
We can talk about it after the show. Yeah.
But no, it's sitting right here, man. So sorry about that.
It's all right. I'm very, I can't wait. I'm just excited.
The good news is the PS4 patch, the day one patch, which was delayed because the Sony's internal approval system went down for like 8 hours on launch day, so that the actual patch went out much later than we wanted. But once you download it, you'll get the full original version plus the patch.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, so sorry about
that. It's all right. It's all right. You know, I have something to look forward to after the show. So yeah, there you go. Okay, so yeah, so that's the thing, folks. Surprises come in very different times.
Come in purple packages.
Yes. Yeah, so this is their actual website, Art of Play. You know, obviously the pre-orders have been closed for that, but for those who actually did the pre-orders, you're getting some very awesome stuff, and you're just enjoying it. So I'm very happy for you guys.
Yeah, the collector's packs are going to be awesome. We start shipping those out as of next week. We're doing all the Switch orders first, and then the PlayStation ones after that.
Wow.
And then we middle of this year we start doing pre-orders for Lady Death, which is our next game.
Yes, I saw that. That has to be exciting as well.
Yeah, so we teamed up with the original creator of Lady Death, Brian Polito, and I flew to Phoenix in 2023 to meet with him and discuss what we wanted to do. And he's a classic 90s guy, just loves everything 90s, everything from metal to, like, that was his era, right? That's when Lady Death was first created. So we pitched it, and so it's going to be a little bit different to the Phantom. It's going to be a bit faster, a bit more. She's a bit more of an agile character, super powerful, but also she has a whole bunch of different moves. She's got swords, she's got scythe, she's got magic. So yeah, I encourage anyone to jump onto the official social media channels and watch our day-to-day updates on that game as well.
Some stuff to look forward to, folks.
Yeah, and look, it takes advantage of our hand-drawn pipeline that we sort of had to build up from scratch, and most of our team from the Phantom followed through for Lady Death. Anthony Spey was already drawing covers for the Phantom at the time. For Lady Death at the time. So he stuck on board to do all the illustrations for Lady Death as well. So it's kind of Phantom 3.0 in the sense that visually it's gorgeous. Mechanically, a lot will be changed from the original Phantom engine, like a lot.
Yeah.
But it's continuing our style of gaming.
I'm very happy for you, Ash. I'm very happy for you and your team.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you guys for bringing us these games.
Well, like I said, we're fans first and foremost. Even the people on our team that have not heard of the Phantom before now are Phantom fans. Particularly my lead developer. He went and bought a whole bunch of comics. He's got more comics than me now. So he started with the DC stuff, which is, I said, let's fine. We'll get you some Fru stuff. We'll get you the full kit and caboodle. But but yeah, it's ultimately we just wanted to have something out on the market that had a unique stamp on it, and Phantom fans could get behind. I've had people in their 60s and 70s say, I didn't own a console, but I went out and bought a Switch for this. So that's lovely. Like I said, we've had couples playing on date nights. For us, it's we've been welcomed very warmly into the Phantom community, and we've caught up. We've had various group meetings and dinners and things like that. So it's quite a great thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I'm happy for you guys.
Thanks. Let's hope you still think that when you play the game.
You know what? I'm pretty sure what's going to happen is when I do start playing the game, I'm probably going to send you an email and say, Ash, this is fantastic. This is everything I want.
Well, Ian, we're actually looking for half a dozen testers for our next version of the Phantom game. So if you want to be on that list, man, if you want to give us some feedback, we'll send you a spreadsheet and you can type away.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do that. Absolutely.
Yeah, great.
All right.
I actually have a couple of questions for you, if that's okay.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah. So your website, there's a few different comics on there. Are you self-publishing? Are you an illustrator yourself?
Yes, I am an illustrator, and I am self-publishing.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
Yeah. In fact, I could actually show you my comic right now.
Let's do it. I'd love to see it.
All right. So here we go. This is Codename Hunter. It's a sci-fi spy thriller. It's pretty much James Bond meets Star Trek meets Star Wars with a dash of Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yep.
The story is about a secret agent named Sean Wade. His codename Hunter, and he's actually in charge of protecting Earth and the galaxy from terrorism, both domestic and extraterrestrial. It's all set in the future, so yeah.
That's cool. And how long have you been working on this for?
I've been working on this since 2018, actually.
Yep.
So it's been quite a while.
You're doing print on demand. Did you go to all the cons and things like that as well as an artist or as a contributor?
Yeah, I actually do. In fact, I have a convention this weekend that I'm getting ready to go to.
Right. Yes, that's the thing. Like we were not in that world before the Phantom, right? And now with Lady Death as well, we're firmly planted in the world of Comic Cons and various other conventions. So for us, it's a whole new experience because I grew up in a pretty basic sort of rural town in Australia, and we had one comic book store, and it lasted about 3 years. And so
wow,
comics for us was always about like getting a train and going to the capital city and looking around the comic book stores there and things like that. Locally, there wasn't really much for us as kids, except for what was available at the local news agent. So it's even though we grew up with a lot of comics, we didn't really ever experience the Comic Con, the sort of the show, the big sort of spectacle of the comic book industry. So New York Comic Con 2023 for me was the first ever con I'd been to, and it kind of like both exploded and imploded my brain at the same time. The sheer volume of it, because I'd lived in New York for 7 years, and I'd never really gone to Comic Con even when I was living there.
Mm-hmm.
We're making games for 4 to 12-year-olds, so for us it was just the kids industry. But now, I mean, I'm totally enamored by everyone in the comic book industry and all the hard work they do. And another big thing we wanted to do with the Phantom game was to bring in comic book artists that know what they're doing in the comic book space and kind of give them some training and insight into how video games work, because there's just so much great artwork out there in the world that could be brought into the video game side of things, but just isn't, because the gaming community is there's a lot of pixel stuff, there's a lot of 3D stuff, everyone who thinks retro kind of automatically goes to pixel. So that's another thing we're trying to do, even with our games coming up, even beyond Lady Death, is to try and we want people to feel like they're playing the show that they watched in the 80s. So we're working a lot on now mimicking the traditional hand production cell type shows. So that's kind of like our next visual style that we're trying to achieve. So, but yeah, that's all great, man. Loving it.
Thanks. Yeah, just to tell you folks what convention I'm going to. It's the Indie Comic Creator Con, which is in New Haven, Connecticut. I'll send you the details, obviously, in my next video. But yeah, that's what we're going to read this weekend.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Ash, I can't thank you enough for coming on here and just blowing me away with so many things.
It's been a pleasure, my friend. Thank you for waiting patiently and messaging me enough to remind me. The last 3 months have been a bit of a whirlwind. You know, there's few of us, and just trying to port to all the different platforms and have it ready on time and everything has been a phenomenal task for us internally. So we're happy it's out. We're nervous it's out. We're excited. We might have to microdose a fair bit and maybe take a 3 or 4 month long nap after the second release is out, I think.
Yeah, I think you do.
There's no time to even do that.
Exactly. Just gotta keep rolling with the punches and just keep going.
Yeah. So yeah, let's chat when this finishes. I'll resend you your link, and you can spend the rest of your evening, hopefully, knocking the snot out of some pirates.
Absolutely, I'm looking forward to it. Absolutely. Well, folks, I think that's gonna be it for us tonight, or morning, as you are in Australia. So, I'm Ian Miller, and this has been Troubadour Comics YouTube channel. Have a good night or good morning.
Thanks for having me. Cheers.
Of course.